This is the Open University.
Thank you, you've been a captive audience.
So step through the curtain, rip it back, out of the sight. The velvet fist in the golden cloud.
Well, you know he only makes albums to talk about them, don't you? His long genetic heritage of Scottish teachers makes it impossible for him not to explain himself when he makes an album, and he makes albums very frequently. Humperstink is the one he's making just now. He is Nick Curry, myself, your lecturer, and the artist being discussed. It's a bit like the emotional lectures I used to do when I would talk about a poet and be the poet at the same time. If I take you back to my boarding school days, I had various nicknames which were being tried out on me. Nidge, Rabbit, Poof, Groovy, Hot Stuff, Humperstink. Humperstink didn't stick, but it was a boy called Callum Campbell who, when I did a concert at Christmas in 1970, I played She'll Be Coming Around the Mountain When She Comes, and I had fat lips, so I guess I was a bit like Engelbert Humperdinck, who was big at that time with Please Release Me, Let Me Go, and is better known now for Lesbian Seagull, which was in South Park, which is a very wishy-washy ballad about a lesbian seagull. And so I thought, because the lyrics of the first song alluded to Humperstink as a character, I don't know, who is he? Trump, I guess. I thought it might be a good album title. Somebody already complained though on Patreon saying they weren't keen on this potential title, so it's only a provisional title for now. So let's get right in. Let's start with the first song, which is Schlubs and Bozos.
Somebody got to the Schlubs and the Bozos so far behind, they think they're ahead. As the chains and oil world system solemnly burns itself to death.
A schlub, it's a Yiddish word for a kind of badly presented person or a stupid person. Bozo pretty much means the same thing. And I was on holiday in Limoges, or near Limoges in the countryside, in a place that was delightfully scented by cow shit, just to prove I was really in the countryside. I had 4 days there, but I was keen to come back to Paris, to the Big Smoke, which is kind of provincial right now anyway, kind of empty, tumbleweedy, as it always is in August when people are on holiday. If you're not near the touristic spots, there's not much going on, and a lot of shops and cafes are shut. So I came back, you know, I used to work in the rainy season in Japan at this time of year, just before this, I guess. And now I tend to work in the holiday season in France. So I was intent on starting a new album. I had to do the second album of the year, which has become a regular thing, 2 albums per year for me, because time is running out. And the plan was to make an album using a sort of Dogma 95-like restriction. Dogma 95 was the school of filmmaking that people like Thomas Vinterberg and Harmony Korine were signed up to in the mid-90s, where they would swear to refrain from anything but natural lighting, natural sound, immediate sound, no overdubbing, this kind of thing, avoiding technical trickery, getting back to some kind of essential, very Protestant or post-Protestant kind of idea, this purity. So my version of it was I was going to make an album called The Guitar Album, codenamed The Guitar Album, with just a guitar. All the sounds being produced by the guitar, which of course I knew was a formula I was going to rebel against pretty quickly. There's a conservative cadre amongst my fans who want me to go back to Circus Maximus. The irony being that Circus Maximus is only partly guitar, and it was even just a rented guitar at the time, mixed with electronics, the hottest, cuttingest edge electronics, which was at the time the Emulator 2 sampling keyboard. So what you're hearing on, you know, they are songs that were composed on a guitar, on my Baldwin 12 string, but they are complemented by electronics, and pretty much every album I've made since then has been similar, including an album like Quietism, which has a huge amount of acoustic guitar on it, but also is complemented by AI, which is this year's version, I suppose you could say, of the sort of cutting-edge technology. Sorry, this is a very bad cutting-edge technology here. Trying to get the facial tracking set up on my... There we go. Every sound would be produced by my acoustic guitar, and I kind of wanted to make a second Circus Maximus to please my traditionalist fans. What has changed though since the 80s, since my recordings of the 80s, is the availability of studios. In other words, using a home studio. Most musicians now use home studios, and that's a big step forward, because you can record instantly as you write, you know. It used to be that you would hone and polish a song over months, which sometimes made it better and sometimes made it worse, because it was very hard to capture the spontaneity and the raw excitement of a demo. And I very much believe in being carried on a surge of enthusiasm as you write a song to a conclusion which should be the final mix within a few hours, you know, and then make a video, a quick scrappy video on the back of that, all in the same surge of excitement. It's a really natural rhythm for me of the appetites, the excitement of creation. So it's very hard to get back to that old way of working, which is that you'd have a song recorded on a cassette tape or even do a Porta Studio mix and then reproduce it in the studio, often in hasty, non-ideal kind of conditions. So I don't want to go back to that, you know. It may have had some advantages, but mostly I prefer the way I work now. You don't have to work for record labels, and, you know, it's much more free. So what I have is a sort of cottage industry of continuous production, almost continuous production. So immediacy, hands-on quirky production, which studio engineers used to do their best to prevent you from doing, and then immediate publication worldwide using Bandcamp, Patreon, the social media platforms that we have today. So the whole technology of distribution of music has changed, as well as the production of music. But it's still music, and I'm still someone who was alive in the 60s and who thinks of music the way it was in the 60s and 70s, which was, it was a very central cultural information bearing device, which the internet kind of replaced in some ways. And I think in some sense vloggers are the new rock stars. The Heart is a Lonely Humper was the original title of this song. Something I'd scribbled down in my notes. And that's obviously from Carson McCullers' I think 1963 novel, The Heart is a Lonely Hunter. She took the phrase from a Scottish poet, actually. He was called William Sharp, and his poem says, "But my heart is a lonely hunter that hunts on a lonely hill." The line, "He's a fucked up horrible stinker," was actually inspired by the name of a Tumblr user I chuckled about. Somebody who'd liked my Tumblr posts, I think it was Fucked Up Stinker or something was his pseudonym, or her. I guess this song's yet another of my complaints about incipient fascism. So it's a little bit like World of Night or something. You know, I keep doing, for the last decade, I've been doing these songs railing against the inevitable march of fascism, Farage and the rest of them. So somebody was complaining about the cod Cockney voice, which might be a Dick Van Dyke tribute, or it might be a wink to the Bowie character on the Man Who Sold the World album, or it might just be a way of saying that I'm distancing myself in a Brechtian alienation device from some of the sentiments that the character in the song is portraying. And it could be influenced also by the Threepenny Opera, and, you know, sort of a German imagined take on Cockney doings, on Cockney goings on cabaret songs, or indeed opera from the 17th century. It's a voice I've always done. It's a voice on the Ultraconformist album, for instance, which allows me to be a little more lighthearted and also to sing in it makes it a connection with the kind of music hall and even Sondheim and things like that, you know, Sweeney Todd, Demon Barber of Fleet Street. The song originated in a guitar improvisation, but then I did a very elaborate electronic arrangement around it. And then I thought, no, this is no good. The more I add, the more it loses, you know, its essential nature. And so I stripped it back down, put some new guitar parts on there and made it much more guitar-y. So bringing it back to the original concept, which I kind of think I'll be doing on all the songs, or a lot of the songs on this album. The electronic element I did keep was a kind of synth Morse code, and which is a bit like the BFBS ident that David Bowie based Lust for Life, the Iggy Pop song, on when they were both living in Berlin. They would listen to the news, which was introduced with this little Morse code kind of stutter. I like these very rhythmic spines on songs. And it also reminds me a little bit of Spike Milligan's line from Q4, I think it was, where he is banging a television. Bloody thing won't work. Becomes a kind of tribal chant. Guitar was in a tuning which I used to use in the early Momus days to get a sort of schizoid, sinister sound. The top two strings are tuned down one semitone, so it introduces discords into familiar chords. So I often, in my more misanthropic moments, I'm walking, you know, through a city and I'll think, you know, why is modern life defined by Schlubs and Bozos? These people who don't care about their appearance and don't care what they're consuming culturally, and also vote for the wrong parties, you know. I was obviously backing Binface last week for the Clacton by-election. Humperstinks keep emerging, unfortunately, and Farage was elected while I was writing this particular song. The loneliness of rational humanists in a world in which right-wingers have embraced their own form of toxic identity politics continues. So a huge amount of work went into building up and then stripping down the song, and then I got a mix I liked, balancing acoustic and electronic elements. And then for the video I used Pat and Matt, which is a Czech animation, sort of 3D animation from 1977. I placed their bungling inventiveness against a backdrop of the California Palisades fire of early last year, and they and we really are fiddling while Rome burns. My train back from the Venice Biennale, for instance, this year was stuck in a siding for 4 or 5 hours while a blaze raged in Fontainebleau, the area just to the south of Paris, in a deciduous forest. So the next song I made was called The Breakers, and on Sunday, having remixed the first song to my taste, I walked down to one of my favourite cafe terraces, Beans on Fire, and to sip a nice latte and read a book. And on the way I went into a church, which is Saint-Joseph des Nations in Ménilmontant, and recorded a fragment of a gospel hymn which was being sung by a black soprano. And with this song stuck in my head, I was walking to the cafe and I started making up my own lyrics. I'll believe in anything that gets me through the day was the first lyric that popped in. The structure of the rhyming couplets was a familiar set-up and knock-down kind of structure. Though life may be X, do Y, nevertheless, but do Y might be worse than X. So it's kind of ironic in its nature, that structure. The song was a lyric first, then I wrote a strummy guitar sequence, guitar chord structure for it. And the interesting bit is that there's an unexpected F7th chord in the chorus, which I think is quite Syd Barrett-y, the way the vocal melody goes with that.
Down into the breakers all the broken people go, and we'll know next to nothing when there's nothing left to know. Hi-ho.
And there's also a long gap in which we anticipate what rhyme is going to bring. It was actually one where luck and fuck were going to be rhymed, but that was a bit obvious. But, you know, there is a kind of tension and suspense in what's he going to rhyme here. Is it going to be the obvious rhyme of, you know, Moon and June or not?
When I was a little boy, I ran away from school, but school always runs after you. Now that's the golden rule.
So school rule, for instance, it's almost funny when he says school and then you know it's going to be golden rule or something. The strummy guitar was making the arrangement a bit too busy and flat, so I took that out and just left a lot of wobbly, woozy synth parts, plus a tremolo Badalamenti style guitar with, you know, Twin Peaksy, and some lovely recorded parts. So I bought this new tenor tenor recorder when I was in the wilds near Limoges. I used to have one of these on the Beast of Three Backs record period. So when I went to Brussels, the very first Momus EP was recorded with a monophonic synthesizer which was in the studio, a piano which I prepared, put stuff through the strings to make it John Cage-like, or David Sylvian-like at the time, and this tenor recorder which my dad had given me, which produces some lovely low notes, very fluty sounding low notes. So I'm using this a lot, almost as much as the acoustic guitar on this album, often for kind of quite wild avant-garde sounds. So the vocal here, it kind of refers back to cabaret turns at the turn of the century, and down into the breakers all the broken people go, and we'll know next to nothing when there's nothing left to know. And that's because Paris right now is deserted, and all you really see, as in any holiday period, you suddenly see the evidence of social exclusion and disadvantage and problems like drug addiction and just kind of crazy people, a bit like, you know, Beckett music hall characters. They're hobos, they're dropouts, they're tramps, and they've got the inevitable can of beer in their hands, and they're kind of asking you for money, and that's kind of the only people you pass on some streets, and they're doing the cafe terraces. They get on every metro carriage and kind of come down the carriage telling you their sob story. So those are the people going into the breakers, and the breakers are waves, but they're also whatever breaks you in life, you know. The video intercuts me miming the lyrics with scenes from a film called Ludwig, with music by and featuring Maurizio Cargo, which I used in The Coffee Professor and also in Friendly World fairly recently. And it intercuts with artworks by Joseph Beuys, so you can actually see one of his characteristic chairs with a fat corner on the chair, and various inventions which are celebrating, in that case, the life of Ludwig van Beethoven, who was, as Morrissey points out, deaf. Next song was Mr. Diogenes, and I copied the fast drum beat from Odorico by Vondi, which is a Japanese hit I heard in someone's vlog. And the beat had this real lo-fi, it's pretty fast, 138 or something BPM feel to it, and it took me in the direction of Joy Division and The Cure and the Human League, so about 1980 kind of style. I had a mishearing scribbled down in my lyrics notebook, the man in the iPhone mask instead of iron mask, which is of course Alexandre Dumas. So that suggested a song about how we use our phones to blend into a crowd of other people. We almost become invisible when we produce an iPhone because we're merging in with a crowd of other people using their iPhones, and of course they're not looking at us because they're looking at their screens, or they might be very cunningly looking at us from the corner of their eyes. That's why people have two eyes. I only have one eye, but some people have two eyes, so they can be looking at two different things at the same time. And I kind of thought, you know, people becoming oblivious to their surroundings, lost in scrolling and swiping. It's a bit of a tragedy. I think you should be present in the moment. I'm all for there being enhancements. You know, I used to carry a book in my pocket everywhere, and that was a kind of shield, a kind of protector, a kind of way of being in a different reality, or superimposing another reality on the reality I was dealt, which at the time was not great because I was at boarding school. And the second verse references a novel which I'm kind of reading just now, The Boxman by Kobo Abe. And I think it's also been filmed, The Woman in the Dunes, which was the basis of my song Dunes back in 2012. And also the Face of Another. I love Kobo Abe, really, the Japanese Kafka. Face of Another, which I used in the magazine cover video for You Never Knew Me. A man who's having, you know, new identities kind of surgically sewn into his face, as so many people do these days, including you, Madonna. Musically, I was thinking of early Cure, At Night, when At Night became 17 Seconds, because they were kind of the same song at the time, then they became two different songs. Oh, also I was thinking of Masks. David Bowie was once asked by a nervous, shy young boy what to do in public situations when you're too shy to present yourself without having a wobbly voice and stuff, and Bowie said, just imagine you have a mask on your face and nobody can see the real you. They just have to take you on how you present yourself, and you're protected by the mask. and then you can project whatever you want through it. And obviously he based his whole career on a succession of masks and characters. The interesting part of his career anyway. But it's a very schizoid way of looking at the world, that you have to protect yourself in order to protect yourself. So I had a production on Mr. Diogenes, which was using lots of flanging, but then I went the same way as the first song. I removed all the effects and made it really natural, organic sounding. Somebody said it's quite Can or Motoric or something, but I think it's more just pure New Order, you know, Joy Division kind of sounds, as interpreted through The Cure and other people who were adopting them at the time. And also the double vocal thing sounds a bit like the Human League's Black Hit of Space, for instance, which is quite an exciting record. The original is quite exciting, and then they did a blended version of it. And I'm really happy with this one. I think it's turned out the best of the bunch so far. I want to make more pop songs, because what happened after this, oh God, what happened? You'll never guess. I have a folding sofa bed here. This is boringly static, I think. I have this folding sofa bed, which sometimes I put my computer, if I'm listening on headphones, put my laptop down there on its side, and then I'd forgotten it was there the other night, and I did this folding thing on the bed sofa, and it crushed the laptop screen so that it looked like this, totally screwed up. Still usable as a computer though, it didn't affect the actual guts of the computer, so I was able to save my data, and then I went the next day and got a second-hand replacement, which went down from M3 to M2 chips. I call my laptop the hardest working laptop in showbiz, because it gets very hot doing all this video and audio and everything. But I'm pretty pleased, because I went from 8 gigs internal memory on my old computer, which is up there. I'll give you a glimpse of how scary it looks. It still works when I attach it to the projector, because all that's really broken is the screen, as you can see. So I can project it on the wall and still see everything, and it hasn't exploded or anything. But I got this new one, which is it's got 32 gigs of RAM. So although it's got a slower chip, it's actually a more powerful machine and should keep me in business. So then I did a couple of really melancholy songs after that. One of them was called Sweet Death.
I imagine a smoke death, a bespoke snort of coke death, an exclusive, not elusive death, filled with executive pain, a spa death, a resort in Qatar death, at the hands of a masseuse flown in from Bahrain. Or is it a heat death, a convenient, discreet death, an appointment your assistant could just about wiggle in, a death with no regrets, the kind of death one gets if it's one who's ruined everything. For what ruin shall befall the man who's ruined us all? I wish you a sweet death, an executive sweet death, a chic and prestige death, at a clinic in the sun. I call for decorum, I call for discretion. So your death's not the lesson. To be fair, it could easily become, let's not speak of heaven, for God is just fiction. But if there's heaven, have fun, frolicking in mirth. You like to mention hell is just an invention, a projection of what we do on earth. And what ruin shall befall the man who's ruined us all.
So this was a misfire. It was just too gloomy. I started with a kind of classic Momus descending chords sequence. Join me. And then I made a list of all the stupid words that are used in marketing, especially British marketing, to denote, high social class, like bespoke, elite, luxury, executive. But then I put death after it, and so it was saying, I wish you a luxury death, a bespoke death, an elite death, a sweet death. And it got more and more weird as an arrangement with sort of altered vocal effects and things, and became a sort of prequiem. A friend of mine used to write prequiems where you'd predict the requiem for someone before they actually died, for Trump. A prequiem for Trump, a prequiem. But there were enough songs about him already, and also it didn't really excite me, this song, so I kind of put it aside. Then the next song was Apocatastasis, which is a word I'd written down, which means to withdraw from oncoming apocalypse and turn for comfort and inspiration to the past and to an imagined golden age.
Apocatastasis, we keep the end at bay, recover from our crisis, get back what we gave away. Here in my back garden, 20 leagues beneath the wall, I remember everything I ever did before. I remember better days, and though I don't know Jack, I work for restitution and I'm going to get them back. I may not have the right to time travel anymore, but who needs a time machine when imagination is the law? I can't make money, smoke hashish, take my clothes off on the street, but I've still got the golden age, and I'll get it back.
Or to a time when things were orderly. That's the kind of secular meaning, but there's a theological meaning too, which is that apocatastasis also means as Polnareff put it, everyone's going to paradise, that we will all be reconciled to God and to God's order, and everybody will be acceptable, whether they're sinners or believers or whatever. It's a bit of a heretical idea. Possibly everybody could go to paradise, everybody could be accepted. And it's nice because it stops the punitive kind of elements in Christianity, or the idea that there are there are only some of us who are saved. It's inclusive, as we say now.
Apocatastasis is our golden age. We may not live to see it, but we can help to set the stage.
So I feel kind of ambivalent about apocatastasis, because it might describe MAGA, Make America Great Again, as an apocastatic motto, but also I recognize elements in myself which are apocastatic, which is that, for instance, I love brutalism or things from the 70s, clothes from the 60s and 70s. I'm kind of anchored in a hippie time, so there's some verses in here about smoking hashish and getting naked on the street and stuff, and that actually comes directly from a song which was performed in the Living Theatre. I'm reading this book about the Living Theatre just now, a French book about the New York Living Theatre and its problems. They had crackdowns from the law and people. And it was a very rebellious theatre embodying the 60s view of the world. And I'm nostalgic for that, so it's kind of something I would want to go back to, this Edenic hippie thing. Hippies were a conservative bunch in some ways because they wanted to, you know, live in communes in the countryside and get back to living naked as Adam and Eve did. So this song talks about Moses and the dinosaurs and Adam and Eve and stuff. It doesn't say Adamant. It sounds a bit like it's saying Adamant and his good lady wife.
We remember Adamant, his good lady Eve.
But it's actually Adam and his lady wife. And so I was watching a vlogger who recommended jazzing up boring, generic pop chord sequences. And I sampled his alternative chords and pitch shifted them into regions of the bizarre and the random. And I kept working on these chords and making an arrangement, which for a while was very smooth jazz funk with a really fat bass line and drums and everything. And then I went to my lyrics notes and I found the title word, which allowed me to critique golden age thinking, but also my own tendencies. But then I kind of took away the drums and everything, and it became more of a strange song. Somebody said it was like the legendary Pink Dots, you know. Is that Cashbiel? Edward Cashbiel? I'm not sure. I think so. People always compare me to these artists, and I don't really follow up and investigate them, but you know, I'll take whatever comparisons you want to throw at me. And that's where it is just now, Humperstink. Whether it will stay entitled Humperstink, I don't know. I want to make more pop songs. I want to make fantastic classic pop songs. And the closest I've got to that so far is the Man in the iPhone Mask song. And let's see where it goes from here. I love bringing you guys along on this journey of exploration as well. So it's kind of, it's a very vital time for me making these albums. It's when I make sense as a person. I don't really make sense as a person most of the time. I'm quite badly socially adapted and off in my own world. But the payoff is that I get to be me precisely by doing this kind of trivial thing, which at the same time is the most amazing and important thing you could do as a human living in culture, which is to kind of make sense of the things, the random elements which I've been seeing on the street or reading in books or hearing in vlogs or whatever it is, having conversations with my girlfriend about. I put it all together and it becomes something which coheres and which becomes a little time capsule of the spirit of the time. The feeling of that particular month. Already the first album, which I released this year, Mannequin, feels like a long time ago. So it's also a bit of a trick you can play on time. If you make 2 albums a year, you make a year feel twice as big.
Open University.
On BBC One now, a fishing expedition in the country for Del, Rodney and Grandad in Only Fools and Horses. Here on to stricter discipline than usual in the camp in Tenko, after another edition of Call My Bluff.